Thank you for staying with us. There's no doubting the fact that development of any country depends on solid infrastructure base. The current administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is striving to deliver some lasting infrastructure for Nigeria. In this exclusive interview with Babatunde the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, speaks on some of these projects like the second Niger Bridge and the vision of the administration in developing the country. Let's bring you the interview.
Special interview with the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, son. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure seeing you after many years. And I want to congratulate you for the extent of work at the second Niger Bridge. I was privileged to be there to see the rapid progress that has been made on that bridge. I want you to be very frank with me. You've been privileged to supervise so many road projects from your days as Lagos governor. Where does these projects, the second Niger Bridge, rank among the many road projects you've been privileged to supervise?
Okay, first of all, thank you for your congratulatory words, but really and truly, whatever has happened there, the congratulations truly belong to Nigeria and the leader of Nigeria today, President Buhari. And everybody must take credit. It has taken an entire nation to build this, and I say so matter of factly. And I will get into some of that in terms of ranking. The bridge alone, without the two connecting roads to Owerri and into Asaba, is in the order of 206 billion naira. So at the time I left office as governor, I think our budget was just getting to $500 billion. So that was half of our state budget, if you want. So that perhaps tells you how it ranks. And it's one of the biggest, I think it's the biggest, now it's the second biggest in terms of projects under my watch. The Abuja-Kanu is about 700 and something billion, because it's 375 kilometers of 4-lane carriageway with 41 bridges.
Wow. And you've had to expand it.
Yes. We're rebuilding it. So we're building from base up. But the second Niger Bridge, as I said, is first the baby, one of the babies of the president. And in terms of context, within 1 week after I took office as minister, he invited me to a meeting and he said to me, second Niger Bridge, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Oyo, Ilorin-Jeba and Abuja-Kanu are priorities for me. Whatever else you want to do in your ministry, you go and define the agenda and let me know. But these are the priorities. And so that's how important it was. And it was all under some PPP that was not going anywhere at the time. There was no capital to finance it until the president created this Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, which resulted in some of our income from NLNG, some of the monies that were recovered from previous administrations that were kept abroad, leveraging his own reputation for the release of those monies. And here we are. And you remember some of the challenges we had with the 8th Assembly, where some of the provisions in the budget were slashed. So, and the president just said, we can't do this by budget, there must be another way. But in spite of that, a lot of people must take credit. Members of the National Assembly deserve the credit. Willie Obiano deserves a lot of credit for helping us manage the local issues. So does Governor Senator Koha for playing his part on the Asaba side. So do the traditional rulers in all the communities, but I will reach and acknowledge their contribution through the Ubi of Onitsha on the eastern side and the Asagba of Asaba on the western side, and all of their chiefs and their communities. It has taken an entire nation to do this.
For so many people, this was a dream they thought would never come true. But here we are, with the project set to be 84% or so, at 84% completion rate. What are some of the challenges that you have faced in the course of delivering this project that is so dear to the president?
Okay, so this is part of the message of change. This project looked impossible. It was always an election issue and nothing happened. So, and when I tell people you can disbelieve what we say, but you cannot disbelieve what this administration has done under Muhammadu Buhari. And there are other difficult projects like that, the Bodo-Boni Bridge that has been awarded 3 times since 1970 something. We're building it now. The Apapa-Oworo-Shoki Expressway that seemed to have defied a solution is now nearing completion. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that seemed to have defied a solution since 1999 is also scheduled to finish this year. So all of the things that seemed hitherto impossible, this president has confronted them and dealt with them. Now, in terms of challenges, there was a big elephant in the room, financing. He has addressed it. There were other issues, community issues, compensation claims running into billions that we had to deal with. There were threats of court cases. That's why I keep thanking all of the, and we are not out of the woods. I received a letter from my colleague, the Minister of State for Mines and Steel. There's one of their parastatals into which it is reported that water from the project has been diverted to, and you saw what we saw there, the road built from the swamp, really, a lot of sand filling, and so there are still ecological issues that we are managing. Another problem, of course, is the problem of relocation of existing utilities. So you saw all of those high masts for transmission lines, they have to be moved. But more importantly, there were a lot of governance issues that the public didn't see. Nigeria has signed some concession arrangements that had now then morphed into court cases and claims under the previous administration. So now working with different agencies, we work with the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. We go through a governance process because they are the ones managing the funds now. Are we certified? So people don't see that, they just see the Ministry of Works. So working as a team, collaboration, disagreeing and still agreeing to work together. Monthly, we report to the office of the Chief of Staff so that he can brief the President about this project, Abuja, Kano, and Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. So it was one of those meetings that prompted this visit, and the Chief of Staff said, look, I want to go and see the road myself now that, because I've been seeing. So we have all of these monthly meetings just to overcome issues. So we have, for example, to switch off power supply in April so that we can relocate the lines. Those are issues that require us to work with Ministry of Power, the gas owners, the discos in that area. So there's a lot of collaborative effort behind the scenes that we overcome meeting after meeting, event after event. But all our people just want to see, just get the road done, get the bridge done.
I've actually been wondering how you've been able to cope with rising costs of reinforcement, cement, and other materials that you use for this road project, because I know that in the last 1 year, the prices of cement have soared. The same thing is true of reinforcement and so many other things. And does this not pose a challenge in terms of staying within the cost of the value of the projects?
It's a big fear that I live with every day. The two contractors, Julius Berger is the main contractor on that bridge, but the road 2A and 2B, we've given 2A to, I think 2A is the one to be done by RCC, if I'm not mistaken, and 2B to be done by Julius Berger, or flip it around if I'm wrong. But essentially, these cost issues are beginning to manifest. Thankfully, the thing is that most of the procurement in terms of materials has been prepaid for, pre-ordered. Okay. Somebody will bear the cost somewhere down the line. Somebody will bear the cost somewhere down the line. And this is my biggest fear now, especially as we head to the home stretch, that we can quickly close this transaction before the cost spiral out of control. But there are real issues every day, and I'm happy that even you yourself see. The contracts have provisions for variation on prices, but certainly nothing within the contemplation of what has happened in the last few weeks. So it may have to eat into the profit margins of the contractor or somewhere down the line, but we will solve it as we go along.
And that brings me to the issue of funding for road projects, innovative ideas about funding for road projects. Certainly, given your experience with the 8th Senate and what we see all the time, the National Assembly, or appropriation by the National Assembly cannot take care of all the funding that we need to fix roads in our country. There are those who have suggested that we could go the PPP way. Others have suggested that even the pension funds sitting in those banks where they are kept can also be used to fix roads. Where do you stand in all of this?
Okay, let me start from the appropriation budget itself, appropriation law when it is passed. Roughly our capex is about 3-point-something trillion. And if that capex was used on a consensus basis to choose dedicated projects, certainly it will go a long way. But whether you like it or not now, the reality is that Parliament is choosing projects and thinning out. So every year, if you go into our budget, you will see dozens, if not hundreds of projects, 100 million, 100 million, 100 million, 100 million, across all the representative constituencies.
A lot of them new projects.
New projects. But the real project cost will be about 10 billion, but all you have is 100 million. And they insist that since it's in the budget, it's a law, you must implement it. So if we collapse those 100 millions into 1 or 2 or 4 projects, we can do 36 projects in each state. Major projects. So that's one problem there. But you must see the other side. The electorate does not also want to hear that the parliamentarian passed bills and moved motions and went on oversight. They want to see what he did. So there seems to be a conflation of the responsibility of the parliamentarian, and for their own survival, this is what they have invoked. And that has moved us, in that sense, if we wanted to show results, big projects like this, to the PIDF, which was the President's initiative, the Infrastructure Development Fund. Then we had the Sukuk. Then we had the tax credit initiative, which is being used by the Dangote Group on Apapa Oroshoki and on the Bodo Boni Bridge.
Okay.
Without those initiatives, we couldn't do those because we couldn't do them.
Of course, Obajana
Akaba, and there are a few others now coming up.
Yes.
So, in terms of pension funds, I think that we should listen to ourselves when we talk. The notion that there is some 10 trillion or 12 trillion in pension funds is a notion that is not complete when you realize that government is issuing treasury bills, and a lot of the treasury bills are taken up with pension funds, because government lending is the most secure lending. It is almost risk-free lending, because it is backed by sovereign might, and the sovereign cannot disappear. To the extent, therefore, that they are workers' monies, some of the safest instruments to put them is in treasury bills. So the notion that there is some money sitting down somewhere not doing anything is not actually quite correct. The money has been lent to government by the pension fund managers, who cannot take the money and simply keep it, because they must pay the pensioners whenever the time comes. So they must invest the money to ensure that it doesn't lose value. This is something that must be shared with the public. Yes. Now, what is left, of course, is then possibly investable. So if you go and look at the Sukuk fund, you are likely to see pension funds there. And what the pension fund manager does is a matter of discretion. So government can't say all pension fund managers go and put money here. It is what you bring to the market in terms of project design, cost, risk, that they decide, okay, my pensioners' funds will be safe with Babajide Otitoju, I may not be safe with BRF, and this is where I will put my money. But we expect some of them are putting their feet in water, in infrastructure, gas projects, housing projects slowly, and as the size of the pension funds grows, then what is available to spend is will increase. But truth is that, look, listen, we are still not yet the rich country that we can be, and I think that we can do a lot more with our annual appropriation. And if you remember that appropriation was 4 trillion when this administration resumed, it has now become 13 trillion. Of course, if you do the math against the exchange rate, you don't then see traction. But to the extent that it is locally spent money, it's a lot of movement in terms of, and I don't see why we can't double that amount as government leading, because these are social services too. People assume that there's a lot of money in the private sector, but it's not founded. It's an economy dominated by MSMEs, like most economies. So how many companies in Nigeria do a turnover of $1 billion? So it tells you then, in the private sector that we are talking about, how many of them have AMCON debts? So, and who is AMCON? AMCON is government that has gone to buy debt of private sector so that they don't become a virus to the financial system. So, if the people I bought their debt are the people that are now looking to bring money, something is wrong with that thinking. There are a few of them who have the might, but there are not many, and you are seeing them putting their foot into infrastructure slowly.
We still need to talk about even the matter of appropriation and how this impacts negatively even on existing road contracts, leading inevitably to abandonment of projects. When you look at the situation in terms of projects that have been abandoned, what do you think we can do differently?
Okay, first of all, I think we should arrive at a definition agreement. So I've always heard abandoned projects, and I think you and I can agree about nomenclature, because when I check the meaning of abandonment, it means to forsake. So government has not forsaken any project. But if you are the contractor and you are not paid, you will stop work. And I keep insisting that we must inform ourselves. Contractors don't keep construction materials. They don't keep laterite. They don't keep sand. They don't keep reinforcement. They don't keep cement. They don't keep lubricants or bitumen. It's when we pay them, they order it from businessmen. And that's why construction really helps to distribute money legitimately around an economy. So when I hear some people say, oh, you can't create economic growth, you can't create wealth by construction, I just laugh at them.
No,
because
that's ignorance.
Because they don't know. So it is when we have paid the contractor, he now begins to take supply of bitumen, supply of laterite, supply of lubricants, and so on and so forth. And it's important. So once he's not paid, he will stop because his suppliers won't give him credit beyond what he has paid them for. So it is not abandonment. Once there is not enough provision, he will stop.
So what word can we find?
Well, I think that the real deal, and that is why I really worry about how we all understand the role of the federal government, because we are seeing even federal appropriation being spent on state assets when the state assembly is making its own laws too. But parliamentarians, some, not all, feel the need to say, I'm doing something for my state. So if we concentrate our resources on federal assets, we will be in a much better place. But the question then is, who has the preeminence in setting the agenda? My view is that it is the executive. Parliament takes a different view, and that matter has to be resolved quickly for democracy to really begin to deliver on big ticket items.
New projects
are
initiated, whereas there are those projects begging to be completed. So instead of using diverting funds to new projects, why don't we do this thing incrementally, complete the project?
So that's the consensus management in a liberal democracy. And perhaps the flip side of it, I asked people recently in Kano to tell me when last a 20-kilometer road was constructed in their state by the federal government and completed. And they said it was during the military. So it was in December last year we started commissioning Sokoto Tambuwa, sections of Kano Maiduguri, Newe Oduma Road, and all of those roads, Bandekia Obudu Road. And I was saying that, look, you people say that the Buhari administration has not delivered. When last did you see 80, 100, 200 kilometer roads constructed and completed in Nigeria? And they said it was during the military. So one of the things that this administration has done is to find a way around that consensus so that people can really see that democracy can deliver, and it has. Just as we are now talking of the second Niger Bridge, we're talking about Apapa Oburoshoki, we're talking about the Bodo Boni and Lagos-Ibadan. This is happening in a democratic era, but it's a tough job.
It is. I know that governors, not just lawmakers, governors are always pulling your coattails, complaining about one road project or another in their state. And one governor from one of the north central states even publicly came out to say that roads in the state had been neglected. How do you balance things? How do you cope with pressure from these governors in the face of inadequate resources?
Well, as I've said to you, all of what we do here is a national effort. Land acquisition, for example, for our right of way, where we don't have a pre-existing right, it's a land use act matter. So if the governors don't give us land, we don't go anywhere. Housing, they have given us land in 34 states. Being a governor before, I understand where they come from, and unlike what we suffered when we were in opposition, the Buhari administration has released first, I think, 400 and something billion, about 200 and something billion, and there's still more. So something close to 750 billion has been released to governors for roads that they intervened in. But the president then said, stop setting my agenda for me. Let me set my own agenda by myself. Use your own resources to build your own roads. But if we had this kind of reforms when I was governor, we would be in a much better place.
I was surprised the quantum of money released to River State.
Across
to River State.
Party lines. So, and I chaired that committee. Governor Amici was also a member. Everybody, and we just did what we thought was right, based on the mandate.
Being political.
No. There was no politics there. Based on the mandate. This is national development, and as I've said every time I've gone on tour to the states, we, as a federal government, we are not in competition with any state. We are there to help every state achieve its legitimate political and economic objectives, because the sum total of what we project as Nigeria is what is built in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Nigeria can't be built from top down, it must be built from bottom to up. So what we then do is to support each state to do its thing. I was saying to somebody recently, people may not know that the ease of doing business ranking that the World Bank ranks us, the data is collected not from what federal government does largely, it's from what people in the states say about their states. Two items of ranking on which we are still trying to gain traction. How easy is it to get a business permit? How easy is it to get a construction permit? And the World Bank Group goes to the streets to take people's comments about what's happening in their states, and they use it to assess and rank Nigeria. That's the truth, because I sit in the PEDEC committee, and that's how I learned this. But people are sometimes quick to point the finger, oh, federal government has failed the ease of doing business. But it's the sum total of what people experience in Nigeria. So yes, there's feedback about what happens in the airports, at the seaports, but those things don't carry the same ranking as what affects people on a daily basis in their state. So working with governors for me has been interesting. I've received enormous support from them, and it will be invidious of me to begin to mention names. We had boundary issues. I sit as chairman of this technical subcommittee working under the vice president for boundary issues, and Governor of Niger State was kind enough to come fiscally, and he helped to get Governor of Nasarawa and Governor of Kaduna, and we had a very, very productive meeting and Governor of Kogi to resolve boundary issues amongst them. So Governor Fayemi was in my house to see me on some things, but we resolved and made progress on Akure-Ado-Ekiti Road because my colleague and senior professional colleague, Governor Keredolu, wrote me a lengthy law paper saying, no, BRF, you can't do this unconstitutional on this. And I said to him, Aketi, look, go and tell the people in your state to please allow us. We have some money in the sukuk now, so I'm appealing to you. And he has agreed. You are the governor there, you can quickly sort out the right of way. Leave law aside and let us do the road. So we get along, and but it's just a challenging time, but we are up to the task.
I come from Kogi State, and when the governor complained about some road projects, I don't know what state they are now. He complained, I think, sometime in December. The Obajana, the Dua Carriageway.
Obajana, there's Obajana.
No, not Obajana, the Gadaja Dua Carriageway.
Okay.
He complained that the work was slow. He also complained about the Abuja Lokoja
We just awarded that section about 3 weeks ago to a new contractor.
Okay.
We inherited it, and the contractor who was, because it's in 4 sections, others have finished there. I think that's the section between Kotokafe and
this Ibaji to this side.
Yes.
It's okay.
So we just awarded it about 2 weeks ago to another construction company, and I think that I touch wood, I think that it's part of the roads that will be covered by the Sukuk. So when governors are also complaining about their roads, they must also ask their legislators, what did they vote for when the budget was being considered? And I have told governors before, it is not enough to say that we have senators and congressmen, House of Rep men. There must be a legislative agenda from the state that they are bringing to Parliament. What is the priority of State A? So if all of the legislators have a common priority with their governor and they are coming to vote for one road, it makes my own job easy. If you make the appropriation, I will execute it.
Yes.
But if each legislator calls for his constituency and then the governor sees me and says, oh, there's only 100 million in my road, I can only make broad plans. But when the budget gets to Parliament, it becomes a different animal. So this conversation, I think we should take it beyond this interview and let people also know, so that elections are coming. And people must be able to say to their legislators, everybody in one state, this is our priority in this state, or these two, or these three. So before you do your constituency project, you must deliver on this for us. And that will make democracy even more meaningful and more accountable.
I think it is. When you look at Ilorin Kaba, for example, there are some, I know so much work is being done, and as you get closer to Ilorin, they've done a tremendous job there. But as you go further to Kogi State, from the boundary, that's around Egbe,
yes.
Egbe, the road is...
Yes, there are also other challenges. They include security. It's something we can't pretend about. There are security challenges. And I signed a letter off to the Chief of Army Staff, one of the roads where we need support to complete. And in the same vein, we received a letter from a contractor whose project just got into the Sukuk, the Numan Chan Road. They killed somebody around there, unfortunately, and that has led to some community issues. They damaged the contractor's equipment, so it's pulled out of sight. So these are the things we manage continuously. Then and let me use this opportunity to also commend my colleague, the Minister for Mines and Steel, because part of their governance and security issues also is to control what is happening at mineral excavation sites.
Yes.
So, and we had a problem there. In order to complete the Link Bridge, the road to link Loko-Oweto Bridge. We finished the bridge, but we haven't finished the road linking the Nasarawa side. Okay. So the contractor was
That's the bridge behind you.
Oh yes, that's that bridge. So the contractor was having problems, and my colleague, the minister, has renewed their license to operate the quarry so that they can finish the bridge. So these are the things we deal with on a daily basis, and they impact how quickly we finish or do not finish a project. But consensus building in a democracy is so very important. And that means in each state, across zones, all of us should agree what is the priority, bearing in mind that we don't have enough money to do everything.
In the Northwest, where there's rampant banditry, how are you coping?
Well, happily, in the Northwest, except for this road, I will remember the name of the road now. It is off the Sokoto, Tambuwa, Kotangora, Yauri road, and links you to Kaduna. You remember the road?
Is it Beningwari?
Yes, Beningwari, thank you. So that has been a problem in terms of security. So the contractor there just left. But otherwise, most of our roads there are reaching completion, really. So we don't have too much of an issue. And we have some relative respite in the northeast as well. So things are and then they are not sustained attacks. They are sometimes skirmishes. So like the bridge that was blown up in Madagali in the heat of the conflict in 2014, 2015, before we came. It was actually Nigerian army that blew up that bridge.
Oh, wow.
It was to cut off
the
insurgents. Just like you are seeing Ukrainian soldiers now blowing up their own assets in order to cut off the Russians. So we restored that bridge. But the lesson and the moral is that conflict and war really does not pay attention to those things. It pays attention to survival. And people will destroy anything if it gives a thin ray of survival. They will kill people. And so we must avoid conflict at all costs, at every cost. It doesn't do, nobody profits from it.
Now, we are getting nearer home in terms of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Can you tell our viewers when a definitive time when that project will be delivered?
We will finish that road this year. Definitely, that I can tell you. We will finish this year. The contractor is now at, I think, kilometer 105, 106 at the Ibadan end through the toll gate. And the total maximum is 127. And we are in the first quarter of the year. We are going to start the lane marking of the completed sections very soon. We're working again. This is what people don't know. So I will tell you, the paint can't come in without certain NAFDAC permits and approvals. So I'm working with Professor Mrs. Ade Yeye, who is giving approvals to the subcontractor. So this goes on a daily basis. These are problems I deal with. I had to send her a text that they are going to inspect the factory where the paints are going to be delivered and things are slowing. Immediately, I called her around 9 p.m. She responded. By 10:30, the contractor said they had been called. By the following day, we had momentum again. So the paint is going to come in. Last year, the first order, I had to call the Controller General of Customs, Ahmed Ali. He intervened again. So these are the things that people don't see. So it's an intergovernmental. So when I tell you that any project is built by all of us, it is truly built by all of us.
And we expect the second Niger Bridge to be delivered in the
second Niger Bridge will be delivered this year in the last quarter. And let me use this opportunity because I saw some statements credited to April. Yes. It is correct but incomplete. The bridge portion will be completed. The link will be closed by April.
Okay.
But all of the connections to the roads that we drove through will finish by the last quarter of this year.
Yeah, approach roads.
Yes.
I think that clarification is very important because when I had April, I said no, this wasn't what we were told.
What will be completed is when we went on the bridge, there were sections where there were still gaps.
Yes.
And that's what is targeted to finish as a part of the project so that the bridge work is finished. What is now left is the approach road. And so the total project, so maybe we'll say it that way, the total project will be in the last quarter of the year. We are targeting end of October, plus or minus construction delays. Now, mind you, one of the things I must point out too, from the report we got from the contractor, the Monday stay-at-home declarations is affecting work on the eastern side.
Yes.
So they lose one day. Because of the risk to construction workers.
That's around the interchange.
Yes. So because of the risk to construction workers. So people must realize how all of this connects to our lives. So we are not operating in a bubble, we are operating in a real life situation. So if you give orders to people not to go to work, so you have to take out all the work that can be done on every Monday of the year and refactor it back.
No, even there were days when he was brought to court 2 days on the bounce.
Yeah, yes.
So that week, 3 days, people...
So if you have 52 weeks in a year, and presumably 52 Mondays, you lose 52 days work.
I still want to take you back to the ranking, because I have seen some roads that you've done in Lagos. I think one of the, perhaps the most iconic of them all is the floating bridge linking Ikoyi to Lekki. Yes. Everyone, in fact, I get told that many people have met their spouses while jogging.
Oh, really? Bridge. That's yes. Good to know. To think that some people opposed the idea at the time.
Yes, so many people met their spouses while jogging on that road, and in many movies you see that picture. It has replaced the picture of the yellow buses when they are talking about Lagos. That is what we see in movies, rather than have the pictures of those yellow, dirty-looking buses. So, would you want to go back to the ranking now?
Well, in terms of size and scope, this is clearly a bigger project by quantum. In terms of bridge length, it's 1.6 kilometers. Lekki Link Bridge is 1.38 kilometers, if I remember off my head. And with the adjoining road in scope and length is bigger. In terms of quantities, in terms of design, the piers and the pillars, we have an intracity navigational way for boats and small vessels. This is a major navigational channel for big barges.
Yes.
So when you look at the type of piers that we have there, is 25 piers per pier at 2 meters distance each to maintain and resist collision up to, I think, 2,000 tons. We didn't do that type of design for Lekki because the boats that are there are leisure boats, yes, and small boats. Yes. So in terms of scope, really, it's really mind blowing in terms of comparison. So they don't compare. In terms of the aesthetics, yes. So let me give you an insight. The Lekki Bridge could have been a regular bridge. But when we were designing it, I remember as a child that the cenotaph at Idumota was once a symbol of Lagos. When I was younger, that was a symbol of Lagos of the 60s. Then it became the National Arts Theatre. Then it became the Necom building on Marina. And after that, there was no government-led identity of Lagos anymore. And from Trafalgar Square, Winston's Column, Big Ben, to the London Eye, cities that we sought to be like were leaving us behind. And at the time I became governor, I remember the identity of Lagos was the civic center. And I said to my team, no, we have to take our leadership role back and we must design something that becomes government-led, yes, identity. So that's what led to that. By the time I got here, the design of this bridge had been completed. So in terms, I'm speaking now in terms of aesthetics and identity, but we're working on something to make it also a destination type with lighting at night, even though the design had been completed when we came. And unlike Lagos, where we could choose what we wanted, this is a national undertaking. Any change in cost, you have to persuade 360 representatives, and this is why I just said, let's let it be and let's finish it. we will do something to make it a worthy destination and an event place that gives an identity also to the country.
I forgot to ask you, looking at that bridge and the old bridge, the distinctive features that make this one much better.
Well, the old bridge was a single carriage lane bridge.
Yes.
And just for the record, we are still maintaining it. We have a maintenance contract there doing underwater repairs, and we also had reports of some need to do a further specific inspection, which is being done as we speak. So, but in terms of design, what it can carry is with single lane. The new bridge is a dual carriage way. So it carries 2 vehicles per lane, and it also has the pedestrian walk and the lay-by all designed into it, and also a toll plaza.
Yes. You want to bring in the way bridge as well?
Yes, we are planning a way bridge in order to enforce axle load regulations, which we have signed to as a member of ECOWAS. So there's a governance protocol across ECOWAS about how cargo should be distributed amongst axle loads. So what a 4-axle vehicle and a 2-axle vehicle can carry. So you shouldn't use a 2-axle vehicle to carry what should be carried by a 4-axle vehicle, because it will put pressure on the road and accelerate deterioration. The principle really is about even weight distribution, and therefore the road lasts longer. And therefore what we will do is ensure, as you are going through, you pass a way bridge to make sure you are within the regulation. If you exceed the regulation, there will be a warehouse where we will take out your excess weight and store it, and you will pay a penal fee in that regulation. So because we have passed the regulations for that, it's just to build now.
Is there anything we can do about these articulated vehicles fully loaded, just parking on our roads and damaging?
Well, it's law enforcement. There's a lot that has to be done about that. Unfortunately, you see, when the Ministry of Works in the 70s started building all of these highways, the power of Federal Highway Patrol was with the police.
Yes.
And I just remember you used to see those station wagon 504, station wagon with policemen,
yes,
with their check colors and the strobe lights, maintaining governance on the highway. We have replaced that with the Federal Road Safety Corps. But unfortunately, like some of our institutions, we haven't given the Federal Road Safety Corps all of the resources that it has required. And we perhaps also need to train and retrain for them to know that they are the ones who have legal statutory control for enforcing compliance on every inch of our 35,000 plus kilometers of federal highway. Law and order, yes, is the key. And once we start sanctioning people, the rest will behave. I'm always so convinced that once people realize that actions have consequences, and those consequences will happen, everybody will comply.
Finally, before you left Lagos, you were a fresh-faced individual. We didn't see gray hairs all over. Why do you have gray hairs all over your head, and why have you chosen to leave it?
Well, I think this is partly genetic, partly stress. And I don't know any public servant worthy of his salt who has done his work as hard as needs to be done that has not felt the stress. How the stress then manifests from person to person is different. And for those whose hair is not as gray or appears not to be as gray as mine, I think all you need to do is to ask them to stop shaving their head to the skin for 1 week, and you will see the real story. So, but why haven't I dyed my hair? I just think that it is cosmetic, and I really don't have the time to be rubbing things on my head. And then, who am I deceiving, really and truly?
Does Madame like it the way it is?
Well, Madame likes my person as a total person, so, and she has never complained about
Your gray hair.
My gray hair. So
because our women always like us to appear very young.
Well, you can be deceiving yourself that you appear very young. The engine and the pistons and your bolts and nuts know that you can't do today as confidently and as quickly what you did 10 years ago. And when you see your children growing up, you know that you haven't been static either.
Yes. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for
Thank you very
the
much.
opportunity. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time that's given to us.
And well done for the work that you do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Vintage Babatunde Raji Fashola.
Well, we thank him for the opportunity and we wish him Godspeed.
Yeah.
We want those projects delivered.
All right. Our time is fast spent, and that's the much we can take on today's edition of Journalist Hangout. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11. Join us on Sunday for a Journalist Hangout on Sunday, 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.